Welcome to the SMB Community Podcast with your hosts, Amy B James Kernan, Amy Luby, and Karl Palachuk. Produced by and for the Small Biz Thoughts technology community. We're dedicated to making every IT professional a successful IT professional. If you want to send us an MP3, tell us your victories, your challenges, your defeats, or even pose a question for us to discuss, just go to smbcommunitypodcast.com and fill out the form, submit your questions, comments, and so forth, and give us your MP3.
Hello, and welcome to the SMB Community Podcast. Today, your hosts are Karl Palachuk and me, Amy B.
What up?
What up? So what have you been up to, Karl?
Well, I've been relaxing after my conference and making forays out to take pictures of flowers. I'm going to a lavender farm on Saturday, so by the time this airs, I'll have posted pictures of lavender.
Very nice. I have been sending you pictures of, or tagging you in pictures of irises as they open up in my yard, because I have a bunch of different varieties.
Yes.
And they sort of mostly open one at a time. But
they do so well in Michigan, and they actually do pretty well around here, but they don't last as long. But they're a good hot weather flower.
That surprises me because I think of them as a moisture seeking plant.
Well, in Michigan, most things do well if they freeze off in the winter, and irises don't have to freeze off, so they actually do well here as well. So
good to know. So lavender farm, here's a little fact about me. The scent of lavender is like someone took a knife and stabbed it into my brain. It literally causes a sharp pain to shoot through my head.
For lavender?
Lavender, yeah.
Wow.
Apparently I have some weird type of allergy to lavender. So
you have to check the shampoo at the hotel.
I do. And if, I cannot walk into perfumeries because they're always full of lavender or certain soaps or, yeah.
I will make a note. I think I have more than one lavender candle.
Oh, no.
It's like a favorite flavor not for me necessarily, but for the world,
I know they make those lavender pillows. They're like, oh, relax your way to sleep. I'm like, no. That's like somebody stabbing me with a knife as I'm trying to sleep.
Important safety tip. I did not know that. So things I didn't know about Amy. There you go. That'll be a new section for us.
A new regular feature of the podcast.
But I will show you pictures of beautiful lavender that you don't have to smell, and you will not be aware that it's there. So
I do have one lavender plant in the yard. So having it out there in the yard doesn't bother me. I can't go up to it and sniff it though. But it can be out there in the yard and it's okay. And that led me to think that maybe it was like processed, concentrated lavender that was the
lavender
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I took some lavender after we planted this thing, and because Earl Grey tea is lavender and tea. Yeah. So I can drink a small amount of that without getting stabby pains in my head, like, a couple of cups. And so I thought, well, maybe if the real lavender is going to be okay. So I'm going to make myself some Earl Grey tea. So I took it and I put it in my food dryer and I dried it and I powdered it and I mixed it all together and like stabby pains in the head. So
so they must do some other process. Okay. One tiny thing, and then we'll get off of this. I was always confused as a child because there's this song, lavender blue, dilly dilly, lavender green. When you are king, dilly dilly, I shall be queen. So that's an old folk song. And I could never figure out, well, is it blue or is it green?
It's neither.
Yeah. Then I
but it doesn't rhyme.
Oh, yeah, it's purple. Like, what the hell? So
it's much harder to write a song about purple.
It's time for 5 minutes with somebody smart. I am talking to Ellen Edwards at the Channel Pro event, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you so much. It was 4 years in coming and lots of tears.
So, all right, not a lot of tears.
Quite a bit.
Okay, all right. Well, next one's easy. They get easier every time. So the book is Process and the Other P, which is also Process. So
Yes.
very nice. So you don't know this, but this morning, as you were talking, we dropped a podcast in which the question of the day was, what is more important for your business, people or processes?
That is a fool's choice. You gotta have both. Process doesn't do a whole lot for you without the multiples of people following it. So to me, like I have my cutoff, about 5 people is when a company can afford to purchase a process consultant or to afford the time to do these types of things. When it's just yourself, there is some value to process, but I would pick it carefully based on things you know or don't know or what you remember how to do. I wouldn't spend a lot of time doing it until you start having this multiples of people.
So that's kind of a cheater answer.
Of course.
So if you had to pick one,
People. Yes. Process solves the people problem. So
okay, so in one of my books, The Absolutely Unbreakable Rules of Service Delivery, one of the rules is you can't control people, but you can control your processes. What say you do that?
It is a factual statement. I do believe, if I use a negative word, manipulation of people can happen. So it's not really manipulation, it's trained behavior. And what the process does for you is it creates a clear expectation, and that in turn helps guide people to the right behaviors.
So I love processes because they make businesses reproducible and scalable. And but if you have the wrong people, they're never going to implement your processes. So it's sort of like,
Yeah.
So you got to figure out quite what the balance is.
When somebody comes to me with oh, God, my people are horrible, they're terrible, I was like, you might be right. But first, we got to set clear expectations of processes. Hold them accountable to those processes. Make sure they hear it 7 times in 7 different ways before they actually know the process. And then if they're still not working out, it probably is a people problem.
Right. And then there's a process for moving them to another job.
Absolutely.
Or maybe even another employer.
Promoting them to another company.
Exactly. So what's the website? How can people get more information about you, the book, processes, so forth and so on?
Yeah, easiest place, EurekaProcess.com. For those who don't know, Eureka is ancient Greek, so maybe you don't know how to spell it. It's E-U-R-E-K-A, EurekaProcess.com.
Everybody in California knows how to spell Eureka.
Okay, one town name and a great sci-fi series.
There you go. Very good. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Karl.
This podcast is sponsored by the Small Biz Thoughts technology community. Check us out at smallbizthoughts.org. Forums, templates, and checklists are just the start. Our community includes all of the best-selling books on managed services in all available formats, plus free training, members-only programs, and the best business training available to managed service providers anywhere. Plus, we have weekly, live, members-only Zoom calls. The average member saves more than 200% of their membership cost each year. We are totally dedicated to your success. Just because you're in business for yourself doesn't mean you have to go it alone. Join us today at smallbizthoughts.org. Very good. So our question of the week, we always have an MSP question of the week. And I know that you all have either dealt with this personally or you have clients dealing with it. The question is, do we have too few ports on new laptops? The fewest I think you can have is 1. If you went to 0, I think people would actually kill you. But I just took delivery of a new laptop that has no HDMI port, which is great if I have new technology and I can just project to the screen or project to the TV. But when I can't, then now I'm stuck traveling with a little USB port replicator that has an outlet for HDMI and additional USB and potentially network and other things. Have we gone too far?
Oh, well, yes, we have gone too far. And I think everybody except for the manufacturers knows it. I was thinking when you asked the question, it's like, well, this could be a really short segment, or this could be a long session where we complain a lot. And so, yeah, I have a Surface book. No, sorry, I don't have the Surface book anymore. I have the Surface Studio laptop, which is the most fantastic device I've ever owned. But it has only two USB-C Thunderbolt ports. And I believe that Microsoft is actually using the MacBook Pro case because it is so identical, except the two ports. So you cannot use Apple accessories because the two ports are like an eighth of an inch closer together than they are on the actual Apple.
Oh, so anything with any kind of stuff that hangs out on the side, they would bump into each other.
Yeah, because Apple makes this little bar, which is your port replicator bar, and it uses both. It just plugs into the side, and then it's got all the things on it. So, but fortunately, my favorite company, Anker, has a nice port replicator that I use. But yeah, it is like you have this wonderful laptop, and now you have to have this stuff hanging off the side of it.
So is this just a nefarious way of making more money by selling? Because Apple's going to sell the Apple branded plugins, all the extra devices and dongles, and all the Apple people, like, they all carry around a little bag full of dongles and devices, and brag about the fact that they only have one port. But the rest of us, I don't want that. One explanation is you're making it cheaper to produce a laptop because you don't have any of those ports on board.
I think that's the deal, right? I would pay $30 more to have the ports on board.
Right.
It
Oh,
can't
absolutely.
be much.
Yeah, exactly. And even if they're all USB and I have to have individual adapters, but having just one means sometimes, like, I've had people who they had an issue and my solution was, well, unfortunately, you need a powered USB because you have too many devices plugged into that thing, and it doesn't have, the power it needs to support all those devices, and that does solve some problems. But why should we have these problems when we're the ones with the money buying the big picture? So
Exactly. I just bought a Surface Studio laptop for Missy, and the Microsoft dock for it only has USB-C ports now. So it's Thunderbolt or nothing, which means that I have to get all new cables for her 3 monitors that she uses at her desk because they were data port. It's just like, every generation of thing has a new type of port.
right. Well, it'll be stable for a while. We'll finish in a minute, folks. Don't worry. But the European Union has required now that there be standardization of ports, and so Apple's being used to USB-C, but that can only last so long, and then there will be a newer, better port that shows up.
Newer, better, faster. Yeah, I know, but yeah, we could use fewer varieties. I'm good with USB-C. I just have to convert everything I own.
I actually like it a lot. I bought my first USB-C to USB-C cable earlier this year. So, the more we move to that, the better it is for me. So move on. Take us to another topic.
Well, we're going to talk about AI again. Right? Some people think it's going to kill us all because it's going to be evil. And then my MSP staff seems to think it's going to replace all jobs. And so we need to start talking about universal income and how we're going to bill companies for using robots.
So there's been a story recently, all of these, so-called experts, the people who claim that they invented AI, came out and said, we're opposed to AI because it will become sentient and then it will destroy the universe. And all I can say is technology does move in spurts, but really monstrous changes that change the entire world happen so gradually. People forget, the LED screen was invented 25 years before any of us ever used it for a very simple reason. it wasn't practical until you could put a piece of memory behind every single LED, do some caching, and therefore get the picture to be consistent from one end to the other. That took time, and it also took a change in the price of memory. So, I always hear people, look back in history and they say, oh, the television was invented at something like, 1925. And you're like, but no one had TV. Like, don't forget that just because it was invented,
Yeah.
like nobody actually had television until it became practical, both to broadcast and receive. So even really big technologies like GPT chat sort of tricked people into believing AI is here. GPT chat is the smallest tip of the biggest iceberg.
Right. Well, you could say that, AI has been around for a while. I mean, Watson has been here for quite some time,
Right.
and IBM's been researching it. So Chat GPT brings us really the first publicly usable version. And I think the only thing it did was point out how terrible internet search is. People immediately flocked to it, not because it was an AI, but because they could get their information that they were looking for quicker.
Yes. Well, and Google really did change the search world to, authoritative searches versus keyword searches. But over time, it just got worse and worse as people kept clicking on the oldest link. And that was not their intention. But I think AI will be so good for so many things, but it will be so gradual. Like, do not quit your job today. And I also think the people who think that it's taking their job, those people will eventually be the first ones to have their jobs taken by AI, but that might be 20 years from now, and half of them will be retired.
Well, what I pointed out to them is all new major technology advances through history to this point have always resulted in more jobs, not fewer jobs. And so I don't see any reason why this won't be the case. It will be different jobs than we have today, but I think that there will still be more of them.
Well, and a great example, a very recent great example, is Amazon automated all their warehouses. And you've seen the videos, robots everywhere, they're scurrying about and all that. And in support of those robots, Amazon in 2 years hired 1.2 million additional human beings. So,
Right.
technology creates jobs. And yes, you may not be able to do some mundane thing that can be taken over by AI, but you get to do other things, and that's good.
They seem to be particularly worried about lawyers and accountants. And that lawyers, I do think, have something to worry about. Their jobs are definitely going to change. They're word pushers, and that's like the low hanging fruit for AI.
Right.
So their job will change, but I don't know that it'll go away.
Well, I do think the one profession that is almost guaranteed to be smacked down harder than anything else is going to be physicians, because AI is better at diagnosing cancers. It's better at proposing treatments. It's better at finding little bitty things. It's better at diagnosing everything. And because we rely so heavily on human beings, because we just, literally, if somebody said, well, we need to cut off this part of your body, you want a human being to look you in the eye and say, I think this is your best bet. You do not want a robot to tell you that. So we rely on humans, even though they're not as good as robots, not as good as AI at determining these things. So, but I do think doctors are going to have a very different place in the history of the world 100 years from now than they have in the last 100 years.
Well, I read an article that said that what we are really going to be seeing is the rise of empathetic skill sets, right? That up until now, we have really valued our analytical skill sets are most highly. And that goes right to your doctors, right? Diagnostics is what they're supposed to be good at. Humans are really not good at that.
No.
So it's too much information. We can't process it. I think we're going to make a lot of discoveries of stuff that we should have already known, but we don't know because the data is too big.
Right.
And
Well,
so
we also
once
have
AI gets hold of it, it's going to be like, oh no, you should be doing this because of all of these 10,000 studies you did. How come you haven't been doing that already?
And we already know that, for example, insurance adjusters are all over the board. You could have two insurance adjusters look at the same house 2 days apart. They would give you a different number. We know this. We know this for a fact. There's tons of research. So a little AI would go a long ways there. The same thing is true in, judges putting sentences on human beings. Right? Mix up the human beings, change the races, and everything is different, right? And we know this. Again, tons and tons and tons of research. So there's a lot of things where we'd be better off if we had a little less human interference in the system.
Right.
So, and we have sentencing guidelines have gone a long ways in that regard, but there's still so much noise in the system that anyway, I just think that we will be gradually, slowly over the next 20 years getting used to it, and we will use it where it works, and we will discard it where it doesn't, just like every other technology. I have not owned a scanner in a decade because I've owned a cell phone.
Right. Yeah, you have a scanner in your hand now. You don't need one on your taking up space in the office.
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of tools have been replaced by a cell phone. So anyway, we want your feedback. If you agree with us, disagree with us, whatever, please send us a note. You can go to smbcommunitypodcast.com and click on a link. You can send us your audio. We'd love to have your point counterpoint in the show here. I just want to do one quick bit of news, which is over at the National Society of IT Service Providers. Disclaimer, Amy is the president of that organization. There's lots of new resources. So there's a trifold brochure for members who are attending events such as Channel Pro and other events on our behalf. You can download that, print them off, send them to your local Kinkos, whatever you need to. There is a guide for getting in touch with your state legislator. There's a handout on our code of ethics and so forth. So we encourage everybody in the IT industry to have a code of ethics, and we've got one sample available on our site that you might download and use. But even if you don't use it exactly, we encourage you to have some kind of code of ethics on your site. And all of that goodness is available at nsitsp.org. And if you're not a member, it is ridiculously cheap. So join. It's $150 for a company for a year. So at least it starts at that level. So anyway, please do us a favor, do yourself a favor and check it out.
There's a couple of podcast recordings up in there too. So so once you're a member, there's training on
webinars. Yeah.
Webinar recordings. So there's a webinar up there on
Press relations.
Yes, thank you. There's one up there on press relations and how and why to get involved with your local press. It's a great way to market your business. And then there's another one up there too, which is a story of woe and how to resolve it, from one of the members who had a client become compromised through MFA. It's actually their MFA was compromised. So we're starting to put up a lot of good stuff. You're going to see more of those webinars up there. Those are private member only webinars. So more and more value coming down the line for folks.
Yes. So please go check it out. And we'll put the link down below. A couple of notes on things coming up. James Kernan, one of our co-hosts, is having his mastermind group in Denver, June 29th and 30th. And so you can find that at Kernan Mastermind. I guess he's got a KernanConsulting.com, but then we've got a short link to the mastermind itself. And then, excuse me, with luck, Niall find that and take it out. The CompTIA ChannelCon is coming up August 1st, 2nd, 3rd in Las Vegas, because who doesn't want to be in Las Vegas in August? And if you want to attend for free and save $1,200, use the code SBS. Well, it's SB Small Biz Thoughts 23. Anyway, the code is absurd. I didn't make it up, but anyway, it's it is in the show notes. And if you go, and there's a link there as well. So if you use that code at that link, you will get into ChannelCon at no additional charge. ChannelCon is filled with really great meetings, and they do have a cool vendor hall. It's the only vendor hall I know of that's completely democratic, that basically all the vendor members can, if they choose to, wait till a certain day and then rush around like, parents looking for Tickle Me Elmo at Christmas and pick out a booth. All the booths are the same size. So Microsoft and Small Biz Thoughts have the exact same size booth. And so I'm in booth 101, and I would love to see you at ChannelCon.
I will be seeing you there.
You will?
It is I will, yeah. It's a good conference. You're right. August in Las Vegas. Last time I was at ChannelCon in Las Vegas in the summertime, it was 115 degrees, and I had never experienced 115 degrees before. So I went outside just to experience it. But just so you know, when you register, actually, CompTIA sends you a message telling you to dress warmly, because the conference hall is freezing cold. So I would go outside, get warmed up, come back in, cool off, go back outside, get warmed up. I don't know what it is about very hot places and their indoor winter, but they're quite into their indoor winters. So.
Well, in Vegas, the thing to do in Vegas is to know which shops you should walk close to the store on the sidewalk, because their doors will open and you'll get a blast of air-conditioned air, because the automatic doors will open as you walk by. And so it sort of moderates the temperature on the sidewalk. But also, hats off to the people in the giant M&M or Coca-Cola bear outfits out on the sidewalk at 115 degrees. Thank God for minimum wage. Right?
They must just have to scrape them off of the pavement periodically and go rehydrate them.
Yeah, they must get a break more frequently than once an hour, I hope. Anyway, so we will see you all at ChannelCon, and there's that code gets you into all the venues and the meetings and the good stuff. So please check it out. Lots of content there, as well as the interesting thing about the vendor hall there is you are much more likely to meet the leadership of a company than the average person who is just somebody who travels around the country standing in a booth. Not that there's anything wrong with those people, but if you want to meet the company's general management, they are often at ChannelCon because they want to see and to be seen. And so it's a pretty good vendor hall for that as well.
The last couple of CompTIAs, you and I have been involved in special events, and I will say that it's highly likely that there may be another one. So when that gets organized, we will let you guys know what we're doing over there.
Yeah, the last one I organized, but I couldn't attend because I was speaking at a conference across town.
Well, thank you for joining me today on the SMB Community Podcast, Karl.
Oh, well, thank you for running the show.
Yeah, and thank you, listeners. We will see you again next week.
All right, ciao, y'all. Please give us your feedback. We really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in to the SMB Community Podcast. If you found this useful, interesting, or fun, please subscribe, share with your friends, and give us a thumbs up on your favorite social media. Please check out the show notes at smbcommunitypodcast.com and give us your feedback.